Alright, what's going on, guys? For about the last 3 years, it feels like it's been impossible to go a month without Elden Ring being at the center of the news talk, whether it be exciting announcements, new discoveries in the game, updates, or general public discourse. Well, this week has been no different, although the headlines this time are about controversy, by no fault of the game itself, but rather surrounding this year's The Game Awards. And this comes after the announcement that Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree will be a nominee for the 2024 Game of the Year. Now, if you've been an avid watcher of TGA over the past decade or so, then it should be very evident as to why this would spark debate. But we're going to take a deep dive into the situation and break everything down, look at both sides of the argument, and come to a verdict. Should Elden Ring DLC be in the running at all? So as we get started today, if you want to stay up to date on all things FromSoftware and Souls-likes, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And now let's get into it. Let's start off by establishing the context around all of this. So earlier in the week, the Game Awards announced their nominees for Game of the Year. Now, if you don't keep up with the Game Awards, this is the biggest show in gaming. Every year, Jeff Keighley hosts the award show, giving out awards of several different categories, such as Best Action Game, Best RPG, Best Game Soundtrack, Best Art Direction, and so on. The show attracts millions of viewers and is a very big deal in the gaming sphere. And I know there are people out there that say the Game Awards don't really matter. From an industry standpoint, they very much do, which is what makes this whole situation pretty volatile. Now, like I said, we just got the nominations for Game of the Year, and you can quickly see the announcements right here.
And finally, our global TGA jury, of which I am not a member, has selected the following 6 games as nominees for Game of the Year at the Game Awards 2024. The Game of the Year nominees are Astrobot from Team Asobi, Balatro from Local Thunk, Black Myth Wukong by Game Science, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree by FromSoftware, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth from Square Enix, and Metaphor ReFantazio from Studio Zero.
Now, as you can very clearly see, one of these things is not like the others. While this award has been exclusively for new games, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree is not a full game. It's a DLC, an add-on, to a game that already was out, and won Game of the Year in 2022. So of course there was going to be an issue here, with people wondering, well, why is a DLC nominated for Game of the Year when it's just an add-on to a game that already won that award 2 years ago? To a lot of people it seems like a cop-out and smells fishy, but the controversy already started before the nominees were even announced, because the Game Awards put out a FAQ about, are DLCs, expansion packs, and remakes/remasters eligible to win Game of the Year? And the provided answer was, the Game Awards aims to recognize the best creative and technical work each year, irrespective of the format of that content's release. Expansion packs, new game seasons, DLCs, remakes, and remasters are eligible in all categories, if the jury deems the new creative and technical work to be worthy of a nomination. Factors such as the newness of the content and its price/value should be taken into consideration. Okay, so that's very interesting. At least we have their internal perspective on why that is. The issue here is that that's a new rule. Game of the Year has always been exclusively for full games. Now, last year we had Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty nominated for several categories, but it wasn't ever in Game of the Year. So this is a first. Whether or not it was ever in writing that the category was exclusive, that's just the way it's been. Now, there has been controversy among this for a while over remakes and remasters, with them appearing more frequently in the category. However, over the last few years, with those being full games, people let it slide. And this is where we have to really get into the weeds of the argument, because there's a lot of nuance here. And let me kind of get my personal bias out of the way for a minute. Even though this channel is like 99% an Elden Ring channel, if I had my pick, Elden Ring DLC wouldn't win Game of the Year. Nothing against the DLC necessarily, but I would give the award to Black Myth Wukong. Personally, I thought that wasn't only the best game of the year, but one of the best games I've ever played. I know some people will disagree, but that's just my personal opinion. So just to get that out there, whether or not Elden Ring DLC was in the category in the first place, it wouldn't change my answer of who I think the award should go to. But the question is about eligibility. I think one thing we can all agree on, the contents of the DLC itself absolutely do stand up there with the other nominees. We're talking about more Elden Ring. That's more of a game that already won Game of the Year before. So objectively, unless there was a major quality drop, which I don't believe there was, the question isn't about the gameplay. Okay, so is it a size-based thing? Because this isn't a full game. This is just an add-on. Well, let's look at the comparables. One of the games up for Game of the Year is Astrobot, a game with an average playtime of about 10 hours. Another game on the list is Balatro, which according to howtobeat.com comes in at around 17.5 hours, with of course a lot of variables in that. So if we're going to look at this from a pure size standpoint, even though Shadow of the Erdtree is a DLC, by the same metrics, you're looking at about a minimum of 25 hours. So a lot of people are using that to kind of base the idea that a DLC like this shouldn't be nominated. However, when you have other games in the same nomination that regardless of the quality of that content offer less, I don't think that's a fair argument. Again, not talking about the quality here. Obviously those games, even though being what some might call short, offer great gameplay or they wouldn't be here in the first place. Now another argument that people will bring up is that, well, it's not fair that Elden Ring DLC qualifies since Elden Ring already won Game of the Year and it's just more of the same. So it's kind of a cop-out. And personally, I think that one's actually a fair argument because we have to look at what Game of the Year means. And I do think innovation is a part of that. The award is to celebrate the best game of that year. And if that award were to go to a game that already exists with just more content for the same game, how do we look at that? Because I don't think Elden Ring DLC necessarily did anything big or innovative in comparison to the base game of Elden Ring. That's not a bad thing, of course the bar was in the sky, but we don't have any metrics in writing to judge that. Does it count more that a game is new and doesn't already have a foundation? That would of course then call in the question of remakes and remasters. Of course a quality remaster is just more of the same as well, so should those count less? Personally, I don't know, but I do think it's a fair argument to have and a fair question to ask. The other side of that coin being that Shadow of the Erdtree is not a standalone offering. You have to already own Elden Ring, and not only that, but beat a majority of the game to access the content in the first place. Is that something that should be considered as well? But these are not rules in writing, and it was a game released this year. Again, personally, I don't know. But if the award is really about true objectivity, what was the best game release of the year, then why shouldn't it include all the things they're saying it now does? If a new game release that doesn't have the foundation of a game that already won Game of the Year can come in and win over that DLC, then that's even more credit to that game. But if the parameters are that it's just for new games, then I think that should have been very clearly established a long time ago. I do think in a situation like this though, it's impossible to please everybody. One thing I can say for certain is that there absolutely should be a DLC category at the Game Awards. Regardless of if you think DLC should qualify for Game of the Year or not, I don't see why there isn't a DLC category to begin with. And a big part of this, if they are allowing DLCs now, it causes us to look back retroactively. You know, how many DLCs in the past would have beaten the game that won Game of the Year that year? It's tricky, man. Like I said, they're never gonna please everybody. But what do you guys think? Y'all let me know down in the comments, how do you feel about Shadow of the Erdtree being nominated for Game of the Year, and do you think it can win? What is your personal Game of the Year for 2024? I'm curious to see what you guys think. With all that though, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like on it and subscribe if you're new around here. But with all that, I will catch you in the next one.